الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وأما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بثنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني بزيارتكم. السلام على المرسلين وعلى علي بن المرسلين وعلى أولاد المرسلين وعلى أصحاب المرسلين.
اللهم صل على محمد.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has accepted all of your prayer deeds and amal, especially your commemoration and mourning and your azadari for the sake of Sayyid Shahada salam, asking him and praying him to grant all of us the bounty of his ziyarat within our life and the benefits of his shafa'ah with the next by reciting aloud salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
And inshallah we can include the souls of all of our mahrumin and mahrumat, the beloved ones and newly deceased ones of the community and around the world by reciting yet in second loud salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
And inshallah our loudest and the most sincere, full of energy to the point that inshallah it will rock the building. We can send it to ease the pain and inshallah express our condolences to the heart of our Imam of time, Hazrat Sahib al-Aslam al-Zaman, and Jalallah ta'ala Ba'ajur Sharif by reciting our loudest of salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
First and foremost, Jami'an Salamun Alaykum wa Rahmatullah. We are thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this bounty and for this blessing to be able to continue, get together, alhamdulillah, form a majlis under the beautiful banner with the name of Sayyid Shahada salam in the month of Muharram. So for that we're thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for being blessed to have this title of the Shia being given to us. We are thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What did it mean to be a Shia? In terminology, Shia means I'm from Iran. Shia means I'm from Pakistan. Shia means I'm from India. Shia means I'm from Iraq. Shia means I'm from Syria. What does Shia mean? Follower, right? The follower of who? Imam Ali only? MashaAllah. So we have to go back to Islam 101, or actually Shia 101 inshallah for tonight. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Yes, the Shia means follower, but the follower of who? We call it the follower of the school of thought of Yahlul and Quran, right? Which means we follow specific teachings, not any form of teachings. Right? When it comes to the book of the Quran, we know that Quran is a miracle. Yes, yes. But will Quran be enough for us? Why not no? If we say no, why not? If we say yes, why yes? As we mentioned this last night, one of the famous phrases that started from early times of Islam was the famous quotation of Kafana Kitab Allah. Right? The book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is enough for us. We don't need anything else. We have the miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nabi Rasulullah, worked for 23 years. He brought the revelation of the Quran. We have access to the Quran. We understand Arabic. We understand all of the lexical terminology of the Quran. We know the history. Hence, the teachings of the Quran will be enough for me. Valid argument, yes? No? Why not? Well, that's one counter argument. Usually when you make a statement, If you find a false example in that statement will be voided. Say, okay, Quran is enough for us, yes? Yes. Can you point me the ayah in which that says, in the morning pray 2 rakat? Not 3 rakat, not 1 rakat, but pray 2 rakat. Can you give me the ayah in which tells me to pray? How many rakats at Dhuhr? 4 rakats. How many rakats for us? 4 rakats. How many rakats for Maghrib? 3. How many rakats for Isha? Where's the ayah in the Quran? Right? Or can you tell me, like, where in the Quran, for example, it tells me about like how or from when or from to where, right? For example, during the month of Ramadan, or when I'm traveling, when I come down with sicknesses, right? To what extent am I allowed? All of the conditions that we have, not only about the Islamic like rulings and ahkam. That's only a portion of it. Anybody knows what's a portion of the ahkam rulings in the Quran? Like what portion of the ayahs of the Quran actually reflects of the practical rulings that we practice as jurisprudence, as ahkam, as fiqh? Anybody knows? How many ayahs does the Quran have? 6,000. Where's my fact check? I thought that one you were going to that. No fact checks today? Okay. Alright, so 6,000. I'll give you 6,000 plus. Okay? So out of the 6,000 plus ayahs, he's looking at giving like 1 minute, okay? As we have this amount of ayahs of the Quran, what portion of these are actually reflecting the practical rulings in which we practice as a Muslim?
6,236.
6,236 is the number of the ayahs, but what portion of it are what we call it the ahkami ayahs?
800?
Small portion.
800, it's actually about 17% of this number. So you do the math, right? Whoever is the math like major, right? About 17% of the ayahs of the Quran talks about the ahkam. What about the rest of it? What about the remaining of the ayahs of the Quran? Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveal the book only for us to just have a specific portion of it, which is the ahkam, and that's it? Well, that's only 17% of it. So if 17% of the entire of the Quran focuses on ahkam, what does that imply to me and you? There has to be this whole different aspect of the Quran that perhaps if I just start practicing without literally speaking, like knowing what I'm doing, I'm missing that 83%, right? 83% of the Quran. And guess what? You open up Tawzi al-Masail. Everybody knows what's Tawzi al-Masail? Yes? No? Inshallah? What is Tawzi al-Masail? A pop quiz. Whoever answers, they can have a try outside. What is Tawzi al-Masail? No? Okay, what is Tawzi al-Masail? I'll give it to Abu
Reference book for the ahkam.
MashaAllah. We all follow, right? Anybody here claims to be a mujtahid? No? What is mujtahid? I have to go back all the way. Ahsan, what is mujtahid?
Mujtahid, that means to know what is haram and what is halal.
To know what is halal and what is haram. So, okay, so everybody here
As
knows
in haram and halal.
that. Everybody here knows that alcohol is haram. And everybody knows that pork is haram, right? So that means we all mujtahid, right? Alhamdulillah, congratulations. So we have so many mujtahideen, and I was not fully aware of it. Alhamdulillah. May Allah extend all of your barakat.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we go back to the very basics of religion, the way we've been taught, right? What's the first day as we go to school, as a Sunday school, full-time school, as we talk to our parents? What's the first thing we learn about religion? Do's and don'ts, right? We learn about the rulings. We learn about the ahkam. We learn about what is wajib, what is obligatory, what is forbidden and haram. Perhaps, maybe, depending on the family, we may learn about mustahabbat and makruhat, what is recommended, what is not recommended, and if you're really like in a specific family, maybe we learn about what is mubah, which is, literally speaking, has no set of preference when it comes to that religious lens or perspective. So that's what we usually learn. But is that what religion is about? Or no? That's what the religion is supposed to function in terms of our action. What forms us as the people that we are today, right? Is it only our actions? Or better to say, what forms the way that we actually act? What forms in a way that like we choose a specific color as our favorite? What is behind my set of preference when it comes to the type of a car that I like, to the type of a job that I may want, right? To the type of a house that I might. I say, okay, I like this house, but not this one. Is this just happening out of the blue? Or no, there's a whole process behind it in which leads to it, right? Why like all of these marketing companies, they have like, they have this high bet on like, which shelf of a store their product will be placed on. Guess which shelf of the store has the cheapest like, amount if you want to actually market your product? The lowest one. Why? Because as people walk, a lot of, like least amount of people, they look down. Where do we look? We always look straight, right? So the number one products that we see, the first product that we see as we walk to the store is where? At that eye level. That eye level shelf becomes or has a higher price. If I make a product, if I want to sell it, I want to make sure that everybody sees it, right? So I have to put it where everybody sees it. So I put it at that eye level, right? So the marketing companies, they know. They know that everything we do, there is a whole process behind it. We as individuals, we may forget about this whole process. Yes, once in a while, if I find myself in a very difficult like a situation, then yes, then I start realizing that, okay, what am I doing, which way I'm going, what's the direction that I have, how I take in the proper steps, how I make the right decisions. That's when I start to contemplate. And that's the whole philosophy and wisdom behind ibtila, the testing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We want something very bad, for whatever reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not grant it to us. Or we work for something very hard, and all of a sudden Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes it away from us, right? So that's one exception, but do we have to wait for that condition? Or no? If I want to become a believer, if I want to be a true believer, a believer in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about it in the Quran, is there a difference? Yes, there is a difference. Sometimes we say we are born with the title of Shia. Sometimes we say we are born with the title of being a believer, right? That's one point. Sometimes we say no, I did check and balances. I did all of these check marks according to what? According to the criterions in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, backed up by Ahmadi, in which gives us what a true believer is, right? It's that 83% of the Quran that I have to work on. I have to contemplate on. I have to understand. I have to understand that the holy book of the Quran is a book of miracle. It's not just any book that I will buy it and I put it like, in a shelf at my house, and only during the month of Ramadan, on the night of 23rd, I will bring that book to the majlis, and when they do the a'mal, I place it on my head and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for my request and hajat. No, that's not the miraculousness of the Quran. Allah has sent whatever is necessary for any individual who wants to continue on the path of prosperity within the book of the Quran, as a form of a whole, as they say, the principles. When it comes to details, we need a true teacher of the Quran. Question, can I become a teacher of the Quran? Can anybody become a teacher of the Quran? We have so many people who teach Quran. We have so many people who make commentaries on the Quran. We have so many people who explain the Quran. We have so many people who are experts, for example, in Arabic, like literature, language, like all of the sciences in which they refer to as Quranic sciences. Will those be the proper teacher of the Quran? Yes? No? Maybe? It depends. It depends on what? Yes, I can get familiar with the Quran according to the level of the expertise that I may have, let's say in Arabic language. That according to the level of expertise that I may have in the science of logic, in the science of vocabulary, in the science of lexical term or terminology of the words in which Allah has used in the Quran. I could be familiar with the Quran in accordance to the history of the Quran, the reason of revelation of the Quran. Yes? All of these it gets me closer and closer and closer. But when it comes to the actual reality of the Quran, because the Quran if it's a miracle book, the miracle book constantly remains as a miracle. It never comes to an end. What does that mean? That means it doesn't matter who picks up the Quran. If they're an expert, they realize that it's miraculous. If it's miraculous, what does it indicate? That not a single human being is capable of bringing something similar to it. If I want to bring something similar to the Quran, that means I have to have a proper, thorough understanding of the Quran. So when Allah says no one is able to bring something like the Quran, not even if you guys come together, not even if you take the help of the jinns and whatever technology you have, right? Take the help of ChatGPT, whatever AI you want to take, Allah says you cannot bring a surah just like the Quran. So what does that mean? The reality of the Quran is everlasting. It never ends. It never stops. It's a live reality. Not live like we, and life is limited. But a life in terms of the factual basis. So that's why not everybody is capable of understanding that reality of the Quran. It needs someone who has to be at the same level of the Quran. How high is the level of the Quran? If it's a miracle being sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through revelation, the person who must be the teacher of the Quran has to have the same access to that revelation, right? Which we refer to as the divine knowledge. That divine knowledge is not something to be found in books, unfortunately. Yes, we get a portion of it, but the divine knowledge as a whole is something that Allah grants to specific people. And that's why He appoints specific people to be the true teacher of the Quran. Who are those specific people? The Ahlul Bayt, right? The Ma'sumin that we have, the Imams that we have. In our time, our Imam time. So he's the one that Allah has picked and selected and has appointed as the one who's going to become the true, complete, comprehensive teacher of the Quran. What about the rest of us? All of the scholars, all of these people, all of these years of working on education and research and debates and all of these discussions, these are what we say are the scratch of the surface. All of it. And you can actually refer to a lot of commentaries. In so many cases, at the end of the commentary, they say, Wallahu a'lam. Right? After years of study, at the end you say, Allah knows better. These are just the typical, again, tip of the iceberg, right? Just scratching the surface when it comes to the holy book of the Quran. Now, what about me and you? So how can we benefit from the Quran? How can we benefit from the Hadith? How can we benefit from the majlis of Imam Ehsan? See, the same concept applies. If Quran is alive, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends us someone who will be at the same level of the Quran to teach us about the Quran, apply the same concept to the majlis of Imam Ehsan. It's a majlis that it links us to someone such as Abu Abdullah Hussein, a true teacher of the Quran, not only by words, by practice, by actions, setting up that perfect role model. Not only him, but even those who accompany him. So what I take from the majlis of Imam Hussein, right, part of it is the emotional aspect. One of you guys asked a very good question. A lot of times, it's like we call it lecture, but in reality, it's a back and forth. I learned from, mashallah, a lot of stuff that you guys actually tell or say and the questions that you raise. He came up afterwards and said, oh Shaykh, you mentioned the ayah of the Quran, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ. Right? Do not assume those who get slain on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as dead, rather they are alive. So that means Imam Hussein is alive. I said, yes. If Imam Hussein is alive, why are we mourning for him? Why are we crying for Imam Hussein? If he's alive, we shouldn't be crying for him, right? So why do we cry for the Masab of Imam Hussein? Obviously, the ayah is not talking about the physical aspect of the life, the material life. It's asking about the true sense of being alive, right? Or if I want to give another example, how many billion people we have in the world? What was the latest statistics? Is it 7 billion, 8 billion? I don't know, it's on the rise or it's on the decline, I'm not sure, right? 7 billion people, 8 billion people. Are all of these people, they have one thing in common. Yes, what is that one thing in common? The form of a humanity. We call all of them humans. But out of these 7, 8 billion people, how many actually have the true value system of a human being? How many people have those true values of what we refer to as insaniyat, right? Not just being a human. Being human is no-brainer. You're born as a human, right? You die as a human. No, maintaining the values of what it takes to be a true human, right? How many would it be if you want to call it like Iranian percentages? No fact check.
8,121,000,000.
Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Inshallah, it gets more and more. Inshallah, by the barakat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So 8 billion plus, 8 billion?
121 million.
121 million and mashallah, right? So out of this, what percentage are actually a true human? And for me and you, are we trying to become part of those true human beings, or are we just trying to be part of the mass, the majority? Just like everybody else. What's the point of this discussion? Make a comparison between how the ashab, the companions of Sayyid al-Shahada, made a decision on these first 10 days of Muharram, or before, or either later, towards the very last, the minute of the Muharram, like for example, Hazrat Hur, and do the same comparison to those who formed the line against them. Very same concept. What was happening in their minds? The facts were right in front of them. There was no doubt of what they're doing. They're fighting against the grandson of Nabi Rasulullah. There was nobody in the army that said, oh, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just following. Right? What's the proof of that? When Imam Hussein introduces himself by his name, by his lineage, right? Using the Quran as a shahid, as a witness. Nobody can claim, hey, we didn't know what we were fighting against. So they had the facts in front of them. They had some of the ashab of the time of Nabi Rasulullah on their side. Again, Abu Abdullah was saying, refers to them on the very first khutbah, the first sermon of the day of Ashura, and he calls them by name. He says, if you guys do not acknowledge what I'm telling you, ask such and such who are living among you. These are the people who lived at the time of Nabi Rasulullah, and they saw how he treated me and how he talked about me, and how Imam starts to mention the Ahmadi. How one of the Sayyidah Shabab Ahlul Jannah. How one of the master youth of the paradise, for example. Right? So now he's telling them there's absolutely no excuses. So what other factor was involved to push them, not push them, but made them voluntarily pick the side to go against the last remaining of Nabi Rasulullah on planet Earth? What other piece of information was it? Were they all given the promise? Sometimes we say it was a dunya, right? Were they all given the promise of becoming, let's say, governors, presidents, whatever, the highest, ranking positions that they could possibly think of? No. Few of them were, right? The top, let's say, commanders, such as, Ehsan and Shia and all of those men. Yes, they were given the promise. What about the rest of them? What other piece of information in their mind was triggering this choice that, okay, I'm going to pick up a sword and I'm going to attack the last grandson of Nabi Rasulullah? What other piece of information? What other thirst that when it comes, it blocks our vision completely towards the reality? What makes the entire humanity, perhaps in one split of a second, to forget about their true values of being human beings? What is that one extra piece? That one extra piece, we refer to it as nafs, our own selves. What do you mean our own selves? That's contradiction. It's not contradiction. It's when we prefer what we said to like over what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us to do. Very simple. In layman term, it comes to our very daily decisions that we make, right? How do we make decisions? Let's say if I want to buy something new, or if I want to go to somewhere new, if I want to pick a friend, if I want to go to the location to hang out with my friends. How do we usually make decisions? I like this place because of this and this and that. You like that place because of that, right? Then we start having perhaps votes. Whoever gets the most amount of votes, we pick that place. We take that everywhere, right? What cartoon I'm going to watch? I'm going to choose. Oh, I like this cartoon. I like the character. It looks appealing to me, right? What type of clothing am I going to be wearing? I like this type of clothing. Why? It looks cool. It looks cool to who? It looks cool to me, right? So how are we making decisions? What type of food am I going to eat? What I like to eat. Do I eat broccoli? No. Do I have some asparagus? No. right? What do I want to have? I want all the junk foods. Yes. Why? Because it feels revealing to me, right? This to me part is the part that I'm trying to get out of this. The gist of all the stuff that we're discussing is that to me part. So I find myself at the center of everything else. If I get that satisfaction, therefore, it's a good deal. If I don't get that satisfaction, nope, I will not get into it. And Maulana was saying perseverance, I'm going to stay firm on it. But then that's not it. I have to understand whatever that perhaps my ego is telling me, not necessarily is the right thing. In fact, for most of the part, whatever our ego or our nafs is telling us is the exact opposite of the truth. Remember the very first example I think I mentioned on the first night. As a mother with a child, right? Imam Ma'soom tells him or tells her, in order to rescue yourself and your child, throw your child inside of a fire. It's a contradiction. The mother wants to protect the child. The Imam Ma'soom tells her to throw your child in the very same form of the destruction that she's trying to prevent him from. So these contradictions, right? What would I be doing? Now, the very same example, we can see it in the life of our prophets as well. Right? Think about it. Nabi Ibrahim. At what age? All the way towards the last of his life. He did not have a blessing of being able to have a child. For how many years? Allah, so many years. They've been constantly doing du'as and prayers and perhaps doing a lot of majalis, right? Perhaps. To ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant them a child. To the point that they become completely hopeless, right? That's when ladies like Sarah, she tells Nabi Ibrahim to go and and she actually grants Hajar to Nabi Ibrahim. Right? Because there is no hope. Now all of a sudden Allah grants them Nabi Ismail. How dear and how respectful, how mashallah would that child be in the family, right? Now you watch him grow, you watch him to become older, you watch him to become mature. Not at the age that you want to actually benefit from his maturity, right? What is the test? Allah says you have to take it in your own hand and you have to slaughter it. Think of the content. Something that you hear the most amount of value to for X amount of years, which means again the amount of the affection, the amount of the connection that I have, the amount of attachment that I have, if it increases and increases. The very same thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Nabi Ibrahim, take it with your own hand. Don't ask anybody to help you. No, take him with your own hand, take him to the madbah, and with your own hand you're supposed to slaughter him. It's difficult. To the point that Nabi Ibrahim, as you know, the first night that he has a dream, he doesn't go by it. The second time, the second night, second time of the dream, the third time, the dream repeats itself. It's a message. So what does he do according to the Quran? He shares this with who? With Nabi Ismail, with his own son. Now look at the ma'rifah of his son. Right? He says, if that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked you, I'm at your service. And furthermore, Nabi Ismail says, in order to make it easier for you, as you take me, make sure number one, you tie my hands and legs so I would not my hands and legs would not move. And number two, make sure you cover my eyes so you will not have to look into my eyes as you do the action. See how high they're looking at the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's not saying, oh, Allah has asked you to kill me, your own son, after all of these years. What kind of a God is this? What kind of religion is this? No. What is he saying? He's saying that the revelation is coming to Nabi Ibrahim. There is a whole background story to it. There is a whole future story to it. There is a whole wisdom behind it. It may not be revealing to me, and I may not understand what's behind it, what's the philosophy, what's the reason behind it, but because I'm sure of the source, I put my trust in that source. Very same concept on the tragedy of Ashura. Right? As I mentioned again yesterday, you present the facts of Ashura to a lot of people who are experts at the field. There will be so many questions. Why didn't do so many workarounds? One of them is when the first time there is an encounter between the army of Imam Hussein and the army of Hazrat Hor, right? The first time they encountered, the two army encounters is when Hazrat Hur with about 1,000 like horsemen, he approaches the army of Abu Abdullah the same. So who has, the advantage to actually defeat the other person at this position? It's not the army of Hazrat Hur. Why? Because they're approaching, the Caravan of Imam Hussein, they're well rested. They have the water, they have the sustenance, they have the upper ground, right? So in terms of the strategy of war, they can easily get rid of the 1,000 horsemen. And actually that's what is mentioned to Imam Hussein. By who? By Zuhair. Zuhair comes to Imam Hussein and says, "Oh, Abu Abdullah, if you grant us permission, right now we can easily get rid of all of this for once and for all. You continue our pathway, you go to Kufa, people, we have supporters there, everything will change, the whole story will change. One permission will get rid of the entire army of Hazrat Hur." At that time it was not Hazrat, it was the enemy, right? What does Imam Hussein say? He says no. Why? Just because I am not the one who's going to start a battle in the month which is a forbidden month. I will defend myself, but I will not be the one who initiates the battle. See the vision or the level in which Imam sees and the level that perhaps people such as myself may see. We think of who's going to become the winner, who's going to gain that victory at any given perhaps ways. But what does Imam sees? He has that comprehensive look. He sees all of the different details and different aspects of the very same situation. Which is why a lot of times when it comes to understanding what is the logic of Imam al-Ma'soom, we are not capable of understanding. Because the knowledge is not given to us. Very simple answer is like when you go to the doctor gives you a prescription, and you're looking at the prescription, you look at the color of the pills, you look at the shots, and I don't want to take the shot, it's going to hurt. Is the doctor going to explain to you, if you don't take a shot, this is what's going to happen? And if you take the shot, this is what's going to happen? So he just gives you a prescription, he emails it to you, and you have to go and pick it up. It becomes your responsibility to follow it through. Right? So that higher sense of knowledge is given to who? To Imam al-Ma'soom. For me and you, that again, we have the title of Shia. We have the title of being a follower of a specific school of thought. It's not to be a follower of any random thing. It's not going to be a follower of our own culture. It's not going to be a follower of how my upbringing was, right? Our culture, our upbringing, our families, our friends, our communities, they give us what they have. Alhamdulillah. We have to make sure we complete it. We have to make sure we always see ourselves on the path of completion. Not to say, okay, because I'm from such and such world, I'm well enough. I'm 100% Shia. No, there is no such a thing. Just because I have studied so much, I'm 100% Shia. No, there is no such a thing. As a matter of the fact, when you look at the categories of Ahadith in Bahar al-Anwar, there is one category, and you'll be surprised how many multiple hadith from different imams we have that they talk about the same thing. What is that same thing? What is the subject that all of the hadith is listed? People who claim to be Shias. Who would claim to be Shias? Those who were Shias at the time of our imams, right? They would go to the imams, they would say, "Oh, we are your Shias." The imams would tell them, "You're not. You're not." Exactly like this. One of the famous one is the hadith from our Imam, our eighth beloved Imam. What's the background story? When we say salawat. What's the background story to it? A group of people, they go for Hajj. After Hajj, they want to go and meet Imam al-Rida. They have all of these questions that they want to answer. As they go back, they want to take the answers for the other people. Right? And by the way, Imam al-Rida is known as Imam al-Ra'uf. I have to give you this background story so you understand how severe was the action, right? Imam al-Ra'uf means not the Imam who's kind. Imam who is kind, all of our Imams are mashallah kind, the perfection of kindness. Ra'uf is someone sometimes I go to someone and ask for something, they grant me whatever I ask, if it's good for me, right? We call that kindness, we call that generosity. Sometimes when you go to someone without even saying a word, they give you what you need. That's that ra'fa. It's a higher form of a kindness, right? They give you what you need even before you ask. Imagine you go to a teacher at the end of the semester, if you're like a lazy student like myself, and you're like, is there any way that I can make up my B minus to like an A minus by doing some extra credit? What are they going to say? If they're cool teachers, okay, no problem, do it like a research, do a presentation, do such and such, and I'll make your B minus, inshallah, A minus. This is that kindness. But if I go to a teacher without even saying something, like the teacher is going to turn around showing me my report card that I've already changed your grade, you don't have to worry about it. This is what we call that Ra'fa. So Imam al-Rida is known for his Ra'fa. Such an Imam, a group of people who have come for Hajj, they come to see him. They knock on the door, the servant goes behind the door, who is it? We are the Shi'as of Imam al-Rida, Shi'as of Amir al-Mu'mineen, who have come all the way from different parts of the world, and we want to see Imam al-Rida. The servant goes to Imam al-Rida and says, a group of Shi'ayan have come to see you. Imam al-Rida says, close the door. Tell them, I don't want to see you. Think about that. You go to the ziyarah, they tell you, you're not welcome. You come to the masjid of Imam al-Hussein, right? As you enter, as you pull up, they have closed the door. And tell you, you're not welcome. What was the reaction? Why? What happened? Is there a reason? No reason. So what do these guys do? They don't go back. They're, mashallah, persistent. So they go back the next day. They knock on the door. Same thing, the servant comes. Who is it? We're a group of Shi'ayan. We're a group of followers. You want to meet with Imam al-Rida. He goes and takes a message to Imam. Imam says, close the door. Reason? No reason. Third day, fourth day, fifth day. Just imagine that. Every day you come here, the doors are locked. How many days do you keep on coming back? Right? 6, 7, 8, 9. Up to when? Up to a whole month. That they're staying there. Imagine they're travelers. So every day that goes by, they're paying out for all of the sustenance and hotel at that time, obviously, right? All of the expenses. For a whole month, every day they keep on going to the house of Imam al-Rida, and Imam al-Rida says, close the door. They don't give up. A whole month, they run out of whatever sustenance that they have brought in. So finally, they find another way of connection. They find one person who's familiar with that servant of Imam, and they send an indirect message that, we cannot stay here any longer. The more we stay here, the people back home, they start thinking the evil thoughts. At least tell us what's the reason. Maybe we can fix it, so inshallah we can get to see the Imam before we go. So he goes, he speaks to the guy speaks to the servant talks about, all of the connection, all the path. Finally, he tells Imam al-Rida that they are desperate to see you, Imam al-Rida. How come you're not allowing him in? Imam al-Rida says, no problem. Go ahead and open the door and let them come inside. Still has not given the reason. They come inside, right? Usually what happens when you have a guest, when they come to your house, what do? Inshallah, we're not part of those coupons, right? When I have a guest, when they come to the house, we try to offer them hospitality. The best, let's say, chair of the house, the best, let's say, a sofa, maybe a glass of water or something, right? We try to welcome them. But Imam al-Rida does not even allow them to sit down. Why? Imam is angry, right? As they're standing up, Imam al-Rida is not making eye contact with them. He said, what is it that you want to ask? Meaning, what are you here for? If you have a question, ask me and then be gone. So Imam is angry. So these guys start to break out into tears, what have we done? Muhammad has said that we're getting such a treatment because they know it's Imam al-Ma'asum. He's not doing this out of his own ego. He's not doing this out of his own personal desires. No, whatever he's doing is actual reason. So there is something wrong to the extent that Imam has kept them out of his house for 30 days. What is that reason? Imam said, when you knock on my door, how did you introduce yourself? What word did you use? You call yourself the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen. I don't see a single sign of those followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen in your face, in your body, in your actions, in your behavior. Why are you using that title? Right? Rather try to call yourself those who are the followers or the fans of the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Actually the fans of the fans of the fans of the fans. What is Imam trying to teach us? to be or to gain the status of the true, follower of the Ahlul Bayt needs practice. I cannot just say because I was born I'm a Shia, because I was raised as a Shia, I'm a Shia. Yes, we have a title, but that title has to be or become realistic. For it to become realistic, I have to put the effort in. The effort then sometimes comes within the actions that the 30, like the 70% of the ayahs of the Quran, the ahkam is part of it. Sometimes it comes in the form of the ideology, right? How I understand, how I perceive the world, how I perceive everybody around me. A portion of it comes from how my heart feels, those ethical aspect, the akhlaq aspect of it. I cannot just take the bits and pieces of it and I call myself, no. Everything comes with that responsibility. And we're all in the same boat, right? And that's what we try to gain more and more and more, inshallah, by attending different majalis, listening to different lectures, going to the different, perhaps classes and sessions, right? It's not only, again, to take the information. Don't become a carrier of information, no. We have to practice what we know. As Allah says, whoever practices what they know, Allah grants them the new set of information. So the hope is always there. It's not to become depressed. Oh, Shaykh said we are not true Shia, so I'm going to give up. No, it's actually the opposite. It's the opening that say, okay, I have to take advantage of the time that Allah has given to me. Why? I want to make sure I gain that status. In which Imam al-Raza stops people from entering his house for 30 days. Why? Because they only use that title. Imagine how would Imam treat someone who has the true qualities of the Shia. Right? So that should be our hope. And that's how what we see, how Mullah Abdullah Hussein used to treat his ashab and his companions. Right? The way of the respect, the way of welcoming, the way that Imam Hussein was constantly giving them and praising their status. And that's another great point from the tragedy of Ashura. Usually when we have let's say events, a social event, right? A lot of people have to come together, a lot of people have to take the roles of the leads, a lot of people have to have to communicate between one another in order to coordinate for that a special event to take place. And there's always problems, right? People have different opinions. I want to go right, you want to go left, I want to go further, you want to go less, right? There's always problems. But interesting enough, in the day of Ashura, 72 people from different parts, right? And they're not all from Medina, right? Different background, different level of what we refer to as religious studies, if you want to refer to. There's absolute sense of unity. We don't see counter-arguments. We don't see debates between the ashab of Sayyid al-Shahada. We don't see conflicts. Why do I say we don't see? Because who wrote most of the reports or the maqatal in which we actually refer to? Part of it comes from the ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt. I'll put that aside. The other ones that we have, the historical facts. Who were the ones who were writing the history at the day of Ashura? They were appointed by who? By the side of Yazid. They were getting money, right? To write their reports. How many times? At least 2 reports in the morning, 2 reports at noon, 2 reports at night, some say. Right? They were constantly sending reports. It's that text message, that the social media that we have today. So who were the people who were writing it? They were on the side of Yazid. So I'll guarantee you, if they would see one flaw, one minor flaw anywhere within the tragedy of Ashura, they would have reported it. Why? It gives them more money. Gives them more of that goodies that they want. But we cannot find it. Not only the tragedy of Ashura, but even afterwards. When the Karam of Osara are taken away. I mean, think about it. Little kids. How many classes have they gone? How many Sunday school have they gone? How many full-time school? How many different lectures have they seen? But the little kids, the way they behave, they make me an adult, a grown person, to learn from them. So where are those teachings coming from? That means what? The path is open, and me and you, we can just become like them, and that's why we're commemorating the tragedy of Ashura. Right? So inshallah, we can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant all of us that bounty, not to be able only to learn and read through and gain the information of what happened, but rather to see it as a reality in which it defines my purpose in this life. Before it becomes too late. Right? Before it becomes too Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah, on the day of the fifth day of the Muharram. There's one special shaheed in the tragedy of Ashura. He has such a unique, place at the heart of Imam al-Hussein, and perhaps we can, in a way of relating. He's of the younger ones. He's about 11 years old, and he's born within a family of Imam. He's known as being Abdullah, the son of Imam al-Hasan al-Shaba. So as they say, about a year that he was born into this world, Imam al-Hasan becomes Shaheed. Technicality, who was the custodian, who was the guardian, who took over the upbringing and the tarbiyah and the raise of Abdullah, the son of Imam al-Hasan? No one except for his uncle, Abu Abdullah, his son. So in a sense, Imam al-Hussein is both uncle and a father for him. Right? Now, the connection between the son of Imam al-Hasan and Imam al-Hussein. How many sons did Imam al-Hasan have? That all four became shaheed, except one that later on they assumed him as shaheed, but he was actually alive. Imam al-Hasan had 4 sons, all 4 participated in the tragedy of Ashura, and all 4 sacrificed their life for the sake of Imam al-Hussein. The youngest one being Now when we look at the sons of Imam al-Hussein himself, we see a gap from where? From Imam al-Sajjad, right? All the way to Hazrat Ali Asghar. Imam al-Sajjad being about 20 plus, Hazrat Ali Asghar being a 6-month-old baby. Between them, there is no other son, right? So guess who filled up this gap all these years when he came to the household of Abu Abdullah Hussein? The sons of Imam al-Hasan al-Mushtaba. All 4, they're very dear, very respectful. And Imam al-Hussein had actually even more so. He would pay more attention towards them than his own son. Why? Because of the last will of Imam al-Hasan al-Mushtaba. Because how much Imam al-Hussein loved Imam al-Hasan al-Mushtaba. And his shahada, one of the famous lines that they read, that usually is recited, is when Imam al-Hussein goes to see Imam al-Hasan al-Mushtaba, on his, as he's sick and as his skin has turned the color, and as he enters, Imam al-Hussein just breaks down. For an Imam to break down on one scene, the indication of how strong the connection is. Now the remains of Imam al-Hasan al-Mushtaba within the control of Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. See how hard and difficult would it be to say anything about them. You will do whatever you can to protect them. You will do whatever you can to make sure they are in a safe passage. You will make sure whatever ways that they may find to run away, it's been taken care of. The reason why Imam Hussein specifically tells Sayyidah Zainab that, oh Zainab, be careful of this one. Why? Among the kids, some of the kids, they have extra amount of attachments when it comes to their father. Now in this case, when it comes to their uncle, Imam Hussein. So Hazrat Abdullah, the son of Imam Hussein, was one of those kids. Not only he had so much attachments, don't look at it in an emotional aspect, but look at it from an eye of an 11-year-old. What he has seen throughout the day of Ashura. It's not like they're all kept in the backside of the tent, in the dark, and they have no idea what's going on. No, it's vice versa. Why? Because they know that all of those who were around them, each one that they go, they would not come back. Not only they would not come back, some of them, their bodies will be brought back to the khayma, to the tent, which was known as the tent of Shahada. They were seeing this stuff. They were witnessing what was happening. It's not only the matter of thirst and the heat and the fear and the stress of the war, but they would see that every single person that they actually respected and they loved and they were attached to, one by one they're going and they're not coming back. So put yourself in the position of an 11-year-old, and from the morning you had seen the ashab of Sayyid al-Shahada all gone. Habib is gone, Zuhair is gone, Race is gone. One by one they have come and they have left. Not only them, but even Bani Hashim. You have seen Hazrat Ali Akbar say his farewell, and he has left. You have seen the cries of Abu Abdullah Hussein next to the body of Hazrat Ali Akbar. You have seen Hazrat Qasim to come and be gone. You have heard of Hazrat Abbas saying that I'm going to grab some water. You had seen the flag of Hazrat Abbas going towards the Furat, but when you looked, you saw Imam al-Hussein walking back, wiping out the tears from his eyes using his sleeves, not riding a horse, not speaking a word. As the kids, they ask, where is our uncle? Imam does not say. He comes and he pulls the pole of the tent of Hazrat Abbas. The tent collapses as a sign that Hazrat Abbas, there is no more. You have witnessed all of this. You have witnessed the cries of a 6-month-old baby. Hazrat Ali Asghar, right? You were used to hearing him. You were used to perhaps spending time with him. I mean, a 6-month-old baby, whoever sees this, they want to spend some time. They cries after cries and cries, and you've seen that as Imam al-Hussein had come back to say his last farewell to this 6-month-old baby. You had seen what has happened. But all of this time, you have kept it to yourself. You have kept it to yourself. You have kept it to yourself. Why? Because my uncle will never allow me to go and sacrifice my life for him. See how great of a personality and character the son of Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba. Up to when? Up to the very last moments of the tragedy of Ashura. Because technicality, he's the last shaheed of Ashura. The last shaheed, it's a virtue by itself. What is that virtue? Seeing all of these calamities and be able to tolerate this one. As Hazrat Abbas uses the same reasoning. He sends before him his brothers and he tells him, go and sacrifice your life for the sake of Imam al-Hussein. And why am I sending you before myself? Because I want to bear the pain of losing my loved one for the sake of my Imam. Hazrat Abbas, Hazrat Abdullah. From where to where? Comes the day of Ashura. After all of the events, comes the very last moments of Ashura. As they say, when Imam al-Hussein, as he's falling down on the plains of Karbala. When Imam's body hits the plains of Karbala, that's when Sayyida Zainab is holding on to the hand of Hazrat Abdullah and they're watching over down the Godal of Qatligah. What happens? One split of the second. The 11-year-old finally finds a way to break loose from Sayyida Zainab. He starts running towards his uncle. At what speed? To the speed that as the guy has taken the sword out towards the sky to bring it down on the chest of Imam al-Hussein, he makes sure that he gets to Imam al-Hussein before the sword comes down. What does he say? He says, how dare you to strike against my uncle? How dare you to strike against Abu Abdullah Hussein? But the sword is coming down. So what would you do as an 11-year-old? He doesn't have any sword. He doesn't have any armor. He doesn't have any shield. What does he have? He has only his hand. What does he do? He stretches out his right hand to block the strike of a sword that is coming down on the chest of Imam al-Hussein. Now, a strike of a sword, a hand of an 11-year-old. After the strike, what happens? What remains? As Naqatal says, the hand of this 11-year-old boy was hanging by the skin to the point that he shouts out, Wa Ummah. Some Naqatal says, he says, Wa Ummah. Some Naqatal, they say, he says, Wa Abata. Oh my father, oh Imam al-Hasan, oh my uncle, oh Abu Abdullah. But the most famous one says, he says, Wa Ummah. Oh my mother. Which mother is he referring to after having the pain on his right arm? Some say perhaps he remembers Sayyida Zahra under the alleys of Medina, where she was beaten up by the side of the sword, not one time, not two times, not 2, 3 times. So he strikes and says, Wa Ummah, oh mother, oh my Sayyida Zainab, now I feel the pain. As if that is not enough, they say there is one more fazila for him. What happens? He falls down on the chest of Imam al-Hussein. Not that many shaheed have this virtue. Not that many shaheed have this blessing. What is the blessing? To be given their life right as they were on the chest of Imam al-Hussein. Not even Hazrat Ali Asghar, because Imam had embraced him. But Hazrat Abdullah on the chest of Imam al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein is barely able to move. He starts talking to him. He's saying, oh my dear nephew, perhaps he's referring to him, oh my son, just be patient, soon you will meet your father again. As Imam is talking to Hazrat Abdullah, the Maqtal says that Mal'oon Harmala. He approaches. What does he use? He takes one of the arrows, not any arrows. He had different set of arrows. What type of arrow does he take? He doesn't take an arrow specifically a normal one. He takes the very same kind that he had used for Hazrat Ali Akbar. He used all the same one and he aims towards Hazrat Abdullah, not from far, but he gets closer to the body of Hazrat Abdullah being on the chest of Imam al-Hussein. The line of the Maqtal says, فَرَمَاهُ حَرْمَلَةَ كَاهِلِي فَذَبَحَهُ. He releases the arrow to the point that when the arrow is released, which means about Abdullah, his head was severed from the body. You do the math. How close would you and how big of an arrow it has to be that it hits the neck of Hazrat Abdullah? It separates the head from the body of Hazrat Abdullah. Where? On the chest of Imam al-Hussein. وَلَا حَوْلَكَ يَوْمِكَ يَا أَبَا عَبْدِ اللَّهِ. Oh, Abu Abdullah, at least Abdullah had you to embrace him. But all of our hearts goes for the Aziz of Fatima on the eve of Ashura, as he's been surrounded and surrounded, layers after layers, circles after circles. Everybody's aiming towards one thing. Sayyida Zainab shouts out, Ama fikum Muslim. Is there any Muslim among you? That Mal'oon looking at the Batbegah, he says, go and finish off the work of Hussein. Now he's walking. Who's walking? All of a sudden Imam al-Hussein feels the weight on his chest. It's not the weight of Abdullah. He opens his eyes. What does he see? وَالشَّمْرُ جَالِسٌ عَلَى صَدْرِهِ. إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنقَلَبٍ يَنقَلِبُونَ. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر الأهل مني لزيارتكم. السلام على المرسلين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم إنا نسألك أن تكون باسمك العظيم الأعظم العز الأجل الأكرم الأرض بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. استجب دعواتنا يا الله يا الله يا الله. اللهم عجل لولينا الفرج والعافية والناس واجعلنا من أعوانه وخس شيعته. اللهم ارحم أمواتنا واشف أمراضنا واجعل عاقبة الأمور خيرا. Oh Allah, will ask you on the right of Imam Hussein, on the right of Abdullah, the son of Imam Hassan. Oh Allah, hasten the appearance of our Imam of time and grant all of us the true status of his companionship. Oh Allah, will ask you to provide all of us with your forgiveness and have forgiveness upon all of our marhumin and marhumat. Oh Allah, will ask you to provide shifa and complete cure to all of the mu'min and mu'minat who have come down with sicknesses. Oh Allah, will ask you to continue guiding us on Sirat and Mustaqim, and to grant all of us the life of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad and the death of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Oh Allah, will ask you to accept this majalis and your mercy and grace, and grant all of us the tawfiq of the ziyarat of the Ahlul Bayt in our life, and inshallah the benefits of their shafa'a in the next. Oh Allah, will ask you on this beloved nights of the Muharram to grant all of us the true ma'rifat of our Imam of time, and inshallah grant us the best of our Muharrams. Rahimallah man qara al-Fatiha ma'a salawat.